Hello. Welcome to the Candidate Forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I'm Susan Stomp with the League of Women Voters. Linda Deere is the timekeeper today. There are 4 candidates running for 2 seats with 4-year terms on the San Anselmo Town Council. They are Matt Brown, Ford Green, Doug Kelly, and Lee Stampley-Torme. The candidates have been invited to make opening statements of 2 minutes. We'll begin with Matt Brown, followed by Ford Green. Matt?
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name is Matt Brown. I am running to save our park, our roads, and our money. I'm a lifelong Marin County resident. I'm a graduate of Drake High School, and as a lifelong resident, I have been steeped in the environmental activism that makes Marin County such a beautiful place. I was here for the institution of A60 zoning, for the saving of the Marin Headlands and the Marin Cello project, and countless other environmental victories. It is this same sense of environmental activism that brings me to this race for the San Anselmo Town Council. A wide plank in my platform is the principle of effective, proactive government. I envision a government where need leads policy and money is found to fit that need and that policy. For too long, our governments have been governed by grant money. The availability of money causes us to compromise our values. We derive our policies based upon that money and then force it upon the people. For instance, our Marin County Sheriff's Department owns an urban assault vehicle. As a lifelong Marin County resident, I never knew that was possible or even needed. It is with this that I oppose the detention basin at Memorial Park, the principal issue in this particular race. I am from here. I love this place, and I will protect it fiercely.
Thank you, Matt. Next is Ford Green.
My name is Ford Green. I'm the ranking San Anselmo Town Council member. I've served 2 4-year terms and am seeking a 3rd 4-year term. I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club, Supervisors Connolly and Arnold, and former San Anselmo mayors Paul Chignell and Martin Blinder. I've grown up in the Ross Valley my entire life, went to Ross School, kindergarten through 8th grade, and my family has been in the Ross Valley for 4 generations. Currently, and for some years, I have held seats on the board and executive committees of Marin Clean Energy and the Transportation Authority of Marin. I'm independent, smart, outspoken, direct, accountable, courageous, work well with others, and have a sense of humor. I brought Marin Clean Energy to San Anselmo. When I was on the town, and actually, I should say I supported bringing Marin Clean Energy to San Anselmo. I also led the consolidation of our police department with Twin Cities. I worked with and led the subcommittee that involved heated debates about how to adopt a floor area ratio in order to stop McMansions in San Anselmo that the voters ultimately adopted. I'm the only current member of the town council who for years has advocated a public vote on the future of Memorial Park, and am the only town council member to support Measure D and to oppose Measure E. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this forum and thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring it. In general, I'm known for my capacity to successfully fight on behalf of victims of the Church of Scientology and to effectively fight for freedom of speech, election integrity, and private property rights. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Doug Kelly.
Good afternoon. First off, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this debate and my friends and colleagues for joining me in it. I'm endorsed by Congressman Jared Huffman, State Senator Mike McGuire, State Assemblyman Mark Levine, Supervisors Katie Rice and Damon Connolly, Mayor John Wright, and Councilmember Tom McInerney. I'm also endorsed by the Central Marin Police Officers Association and the Marin Professional Firefighters Association. I was elected 2 years ago to a vacant seat. I haven't had a full term, and I'm running for a full 4-year term. Prior to being elected in 2013, I served for 8 years on the San Anselmo Parks and Recreation Commission. I've also coached baseball at Memorial Park for 8 years. I've spent an awful lot of time down at Memorial Park, hundreds of hours. I worked hard to help build. I played a small role in helping to build Red Hill Community Park. I want Memorial Park to be safe, and I want it to be a beautiful park. I have no intention of destroying it. We are talking about rebuilding, and that does take some time. I also serve on the California League of Cities Public Policy Safety Commission. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm co-owner of Performance POS, a technology company based right here in San Rafael. On the Fire Commission, and I've worked on the Fire Board to consolidate our current, already consolidated Ross Valley Fire. We are now Fairfax, Sleepy Hollow, San Anselmo, and Ross, and I'm working to see if we can't further consolidate fire to save money, provide better services, and provide 3, at least, firefighters per truck, which we don't have in San Anselmo, and that's a shame. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Lise Stanfley-Torme.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for allowing us this televised forum so that we can reach out to our voters and introduce ourselves to them. My name is Lise Stanfley-Torme. I've lived in San Anselmo for 25 plus years. I moved here after a home fire in the Oakland Hills. 1 week after I moved here, the home where I was living was flooded, and I lost the last remaining possession, my Volkswagen Bug. From that time onwards, I've been very community involved in solving problems like flooding. But that's not the only notch I have on my resume. I served on our town's open space committee for 7+ years. During that time, we created the Hawthorne Canyon and the Sorich Ranch parks, open spaces. I've worked on development issues to restrict development and find a balance so that we don't have to have the kinds of traffic we've been having for years in our community. I am a communicator. I have taught at Dominican University for 11 years, teaching journalism and graphic design classes, and I work as a graphic designer and a marketing communications specialist. I raised my family here. I live with my husband in San Anselmo, and I'm very focused on beating our flooding problem. Principal in this is creating the series of 5 flood detention basins which have been engineered, and their engineering has been tested, and they have been proven to take care of our flooding if we can get them built. Our last devastating flood was in 2005. It's time to go online with our detention basins, build them.
Thank you. We'll now get into the questions. The candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. We'll start with Ford Green and then Doug Kelly.
Okay.
Ford?
Okay.
The first question is, what are 3 primary issues facing San Anselmo and the town council in the next 4 years?
The biggest one is what's going to happen with Memorial Park. That right now is huge. The people that want to transform Memorial Park into a detention basin are not being straight with the voters. And how they're not being straight with the voters is that they're not telling the voters that there's an associated cost of $1.5 million to just go through the environmental review process. The Measure E proponents say that they've received a grant for $8.7 million and that's going to pay for everything. It's not. What's going to happen is if E wins, is at the end of the environmental review process, there will be a vote, and if people want to vote no, the cost of voting no is going to be $1.5 million. So I think people need to be told that and include that in their decision-making process. Other issues that we have in San Anselmo are traffic. We're not going to stop traffic. The best thing that we can do is try to get people out of their cars and onto their feet and onto bicycles. Another issue in San Anselmo is the continued focus on revitalizing the business community in our downtown.
Thank you. Doug?
Thank you very much. Well, the flood issue is certainly the most important right now in this election. I want people to understand that Memorial Park would be similar to many, many other dual-use facilities across the country and the world. This is not the first time this has been done. And it's not the first time it's been done in neighborhoods. It's a field that would hold over 26 million gallons of water back from the main creek. Put that together with the other planned detention facilities, and you can have just the 5 detention facilities hold back between 50 to 60% of the floodwater. And that's just 5 of the 182-point plan that was put together by engineers and people who understand water flow and flooding. That's a very, very important issue. I want people to understand that the park will be rebuilt. As somebody who served on Park and Rec for 8 years, I know that there are no grants for recreation. But we did get an $8.7 million grant, and of that, 3.5 is pure rec. Brand new tennis courts, brand new children's playground, brand new grass, real grass fields, brand new snack shack. The park will not be, as some said, walled in. That's just untrue and unfair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lise?
I agree with Doug, and I agree with the gentleman on the other side of the table too, that we have to solve flooding. But I disagree with them because we have to solve it partially at the Memorial Park detention basin site. We are supposed to have 5 detention basins. Each has to do their job to curb a 100-year flood event. And best practices mean that we can get both flood control and a new park. I have raised money for parks before. In the city of Oakland, I raised $62.3 million with the general obligation bond measure. It is hard to pass a general obligation bond measure. It takes a 2/3 majority vote. And yet, in one fell swoop, with this state grant, we can take care of our recreation needs, and we can meet a significant part of our flood protection needs. Other issues in San Anselmo, yes, we do have to address traffic. I think we need a traffic study for the hub. I think we should look at some roundabout solutions that might work at Center, where the county has taken out the will take out the Great Acorn building. I think that we've got to address, as Doug says, the consolidation of services to be more economically sustainable in our community. That's it.
Thank you. Matt?
3 most important issues facing San Anselmo are flooding, roads and infrastructure, and fiscal responsibility. Since the 2005 flood, we have raised roughly $20 million. We have spent more than $10 million in the process, and yet today we are no closer to any meaningful flood mitigation. If a flood were to happen tomorrow, we would be inundated, and no amount of Memorial Park detention would have meaningful benefit for the town. Roads and infrastructure. I was chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee when we proposed Measure D, the last Measure D, to the town council, which was adopted by the voters, and about $700,000 a year is being committed from Measure D funds to our roads. That is an outstanding task. The problem with that is it was a simple tax measure passed with a majority vote, meaning that those funds are at risk any given Tuesday. Finally, fiscal responsibility. We have enough money within our community to do meaningful flood mitigation and pave our roads. We just need to spend it responsibly. Memorial Park takes $17.6 million, enough to pay for the next 3 detention basins.
Thank you. The next question, which will be answered first by Doug, is school districts, cities, the county, and healthcare employers are having a hard time recruiting quality employees because of the lack of affordable housing. In Marin, what are your ideas to address the lack of affordable housing in San Anselmo?
Well, thank you. This has been an issue since WinCup was built, which only had, I think, 10% affordable housing. It's not an easy answer. San Anselmo is an expensive town. I rent. I understand that. We can and should increase our second units to provide some relief in housing. And there's also some concern about Airbnbs, whether we should or shouldn't allow them. If you have rental units, particularly short-term rental units, that takes long-term rental units off the market. So there's no easy magic wand that we can offer for affordable housing. What we can do is make it easier for people to live here by increasing those second units, and we can have some small units built. I wouldn't support massive infrastructure rebuilding. I don't want any large buildings. I don't want any second-story, third-story buildings, apartment complexes built. That's not what San Anselmo is. People moved to San Anselmo, as I did, for certain reasons. Great schools, beautiful open spaces, and a community where the water and the roads fit. We don't have the water and we don't have the roads to have a lot more building, and that's just the situation we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Lise?
Yes, San Anselmo is a community that is mostly built out. I learned this when I served on our open space committee and looked at the county general plan at that time too. We have very few buildable lots left, so it does mean that if we're going to create affordable housing, we do have to look at some of those second units. I am also opposed to the building of multi-stories buildings but I do think we should encourage live-work spaces in our community as well. I think this will make us more sustainable, and it certainly seems to be best practices in communities of our size across the country.
Thank you. Matt?
Marin County in general, and San Anselmo in particular, has at once created high demand for our place to live, and also created scarcity by virtue of our open space. You know, it's a wonderful place to come and visit, live, and play. The flip side of that is we have all that open land that is not touchable. And I think that that is by design. And, you know, it is really difficult to make the choice between our fabulous lifestyle and additional housing units built within our open areas. I do, however, believe that we can do things as simple as doing away with the nighttime prohibition to park on the street so that people can live in, you know, co-housing situations and second unit situations. It's a very challenging issue, and I'm definitely open for suggestions, but I think that we have created this monster by our own design. The final thing that I think that we can do is perhaps stop persecuting people who live in buildings whose ceiling heights are too small. Thank you.
Mr. Green?
That would be me. I'll get to that in a minute. What really rubs me the wrong way, almost every time there is a discussion about housing in Marin, is the failure to take into consideration our very precious, our very reliable, and our very limited water supply. You can't have more housing if you don't have the water to sustain it. And our lakes are maxed out now. So discussions about housing without concomitantly referring to and taking into consideration the availability of water to provide to those houses is really irresponsible and very bad planning. With that said, in San Anselmo, how we can deal with affordable housing is through second units. And so how we would do that would be to relax some of the rules that apply to second units, to relax some of the parking requirements that are attendant to second units. The building that I own, that I live in, is in a zone that's zoned for mixed use, live, work, and affordable housing, and I have Section 8 tenants. So I live what I say.
Thank you. Well, all of you mentioned second units. What factors are limiting the addition of more legal second units to your town's housing stock? And we'll start with Lise.
Well, this is an area where I clearly will be doing a lot of research if I jump onto the town council. I think so at this point I have more questions than I have answers, and my questions would relate to what is on the books now. Let's do a review of our planning codes. Let's do a review of space and availability. Let's find out what the people want. Let's be responsive to their concerns, and let's engage in a planning process with them. I believe the town is coming up for a plan review, and we should be talking to all segments of our community and working with both our businesses, our landlords, and our homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
The restrictions for second units primarily revolve around parking requirements on and off street, and those areas need to be addressed. And presently, it's illegal to park overnight on the streets in San Anselmo. I remember when I first moved to San Anselmo, I lived on Angela Avenue, at 1 block from the county line. And I got a parking ticket for parking on the street in front of my home on Angela, when 100 yards to the north, it would have been perfectly legal. We have excuses or reasons associated with fire engines and that sort of thing, but somehow 100 yards away in the county, it's perfectly safe. Yet in San Anselmo, it's a hazard. So I think that relaxing these kinds of things and providing opportunities for people to, co-house together, sharing a kitchen, that's how they count housing units, is whether or not it's got a kitchen facility, or permitting garages from being, permitting garages to become second units. When my wife and I remodeled our home on Brookside Drive in 2000, the planning director at the time was requiring, and we fought back and won, requiring a deed restriction against additional living space within our home. So it was her personal agenda that was restricting the ability for a private property owner from.
Thank you.
Now you can finish
I'm
the sentence.
not. Do I get to finish the sentence?
You're dead.
Ford?
I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said. So what I can add is, I would say the biggest impediment for allowing second units in San Anselmo is the inflexible application of very tight California building code restrictions and very tight planning rules. There are any number of places in San Anselmo that practically can provide housing, whether it's a garage that's been remodeled or a smaller unit that's separate in a backyard, and oftentimes those kinds of situations have a technical vulnerability, not a practical one, but a technical one. And so it really, the people that get in the way are the people who are applying the rules. Rules shouldn't be applied in a robot-like fashion. They ought to be applied with an end in view, and according to that end with some flexibility. And largely, it's safety that has to be dealt with. So if safety concerns can be addressed, then the application of rules ought to be appropriately relaxed.
Thank you. Doug?
Well, I want to agree with Ford, disagree with something Matt said, I'm not going to go over all of the issues that they just mentioned about the second units. What I'm going to agree with Ford in is that we can't enforce rules in a robot-like fashion. I haven't done that on the town council, but I would say that rules are put in place for a reason. Today, Matt Brown and I and Lise were at the fire ops training. It was a training so we could kind of learn a little bit about what firefighters do. Ford has attended it once in the past. And one of the things we learned is there's less houses fire by numbers. Sometimes they're much worse because of the wildfires. But one of the reasons is sprinkler systems. So what I'm going to disagree with is Matt said, and he was indicating Ford Green's apartment, we're not persecuting Ford Green. That's just not true. An apartment was built down below without pulling any permits, and that was made very clear the day that building was sold. It was right on that bill of or inspection report. We are trying to enforce the rules in a fair manner, and we've been thwarted. The town council hired an independent judge to review it, and that independent judge said Ford had to make those changes, and it wasn't even close, his words. Then we had a trial in Marin Civic Center, and now an appeal to the Court of Appeals. It's a lot of money, and it's wrong.
Thank you. The next question, are there adequate services and activities in San Anselmo for children and families? Matt, you start.
I'm disadvantaged because I don't have children, but I do have a family, and yes, there are tons of things to do. When I was a little boy, Mom said go out and play, and there is no place better than San Anselmo to go out and play. Steps outside my front door and steps outside my back door, well, I have Mount Tamalpais, the MMWD watershed, Storage Park, and the Sleepy Hollow Terra Linda Divide. I can ride for literally hundreds of miles without seeing cars and that sort of thing on my mountain bike. Marin County and San Anselmo in particular has absolutely spectacular opportunity for families and children to get out and play. The notion that we need to have structured play, I take some exception to. It's whether or not we need to spend at this moment in time when we've got $100 million backlog in flood mitigation, we need to spend $20 million on a community center so that we have a private country club for our residents. I'm not sure I'm a supporter of until we do our hard work first, and that is pave our roads and take care of our chronic flooding issues. San Anselmo is a great place. Just get outside and enjoy it.
Thank you. Ford?
I think it's tough to be a kid growing up in San Anselmo now. I mean, up until age 12, I lived in the Winship Park neighborhood of San Anselmo, but got to go to Ross School. And the big adventure for me was riding my bike to school. And the big challenge was riding my bike along what we called then the freeway, which is Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. Now Safe Routes to Schools really focuses a lot on providing an opportunity for kids to be able to ride their bikes safely to schools. But parents seem to be pretty afraid. And so that's part of what contributes to the traffic problem is scores of SUVs dropping off single kids and picking them up at school. In San Anselmo, there's lots for kids to do. As I'm sure Doug will fill in after me because he has a lot more firsthand knowledge than I do. The Park and Rec department has all kinds of programs for kids. There's tumbling, there's martial arts, there's baseball, there's art. There are any number of structured activities, but I also agree with Matt that the best thing about San Anselmo is to be able to go up on Baldy, to get to Phoenix, to go out where it's wild and free and be wild and free. And I think kids suffer now because they don't get to be as wild and free as we did when we were their age.
Thank you. Doug?
Well, I'm a father of 3 boys, and I've coached for 8 years. And yes, I served on Park and Rec, and I'm delighted with the offerings that this town has for their kids. The Park and Recreation Department has done a great job, and I was pleased to serve with other people on the commission. There's the Easter egg hunt, which is absolutely a hoot. If you haven't brought your children to the Easter egg hunt, Saturday morning, there's 3 different areas. I think it's 2 and 3-year-olds, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 and 8. But the Friday night before, it's the older kids, 9, 10, 11, at night in flashlights. It's super fun. One of the most fun things the kids do in town. There's the Halloween parade, there's breakfast with Santa, certainly there's baseball and softball and soccer. Juan's Gym is extremely popular with the kids as an open forum for kids to just pop in, bounce around for a while, and leave when they want. It's a safe community, and we really enjoy that. I think kids can ride to school today without fear. We have a fantastic Central Marin Police Department, and this is also a community that is really safe. The fact is, we always want to expand our opportunities for kids. We've just put in a skate park, and we may even have a climbing wall at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Lise?
I'm a really big park backer, and I'm also a parent. My daughter is in her senior year at Southern Oregon University, but she grew up in San Anselmo playing in our parks, and she did attend tumbling. That was her very first rec class at Juan and Denny's gym. These are terrific resources for our community and for our families and our kids, but we do need more. When I first moved to Marin, I looked at the County General Plan open space element. It said there that we have a shortage of athletic fields in the Ross Valley to service the population that we had then. We haven't added any since then. We remodeled Red Hill Field, but we need more quality, safe places for our kids to play organized sports or just hang out in the park. Memorial Park is in very bad shape. When my daughter played on it 10 years ago, we mothers used to sit there and say, oh my gosh, it looks like a leg injury or a knee injury about to happen. The coaches shared that belief, and it was sort of like drawing the worst card when you had to play at Memorial. We can fix Memorial, and we can fix it with the money that comes from the state, and we don't have to tax ourselves to pay for it. Because we're already paying for part of it with our flood drainage fee money, and the grant will make up the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Ford. Do you anticipate any state amendments to Prop 13, and if so, what might they be, and would you support them?
Let's see, that's a question I hadn't thought about. There are those who would amend. So first of all, Prop 13 is the proposition that the voters enacted, I think in 1978, which restricts municipalities from taxing private property owners to pay for municipal improvements and requires that the taxing remain at a certain level. So there are a lot of municipalities that have been and cry out and say we need more money, and Prop 13 needs to be amended or modified so that we can get more money out of citizens. In principle, I don't agree with it. I think that municipalities need to be extremely disciplined. And it was the lack of municipal discipline that generated Prop 13, the voters to enact Prop 13 in the first place. So as a general idea, I do not support modifying Prop 13.
Well, actually, we did have a presentation in front of the town council by people who wanted us to endorse a change in Prop 13, and we unanimously, and nothing wrong with Ford, he may have not been at that one particular meeting, those of us who were there rejected that. And the main reason is they didn't even show us a plan. So I'm not going to support anything when I don't know what it is I'm supporting. I could support a small tweak in Prop 13, but nothing large. It was enacted, as Ford mentioned, for good reason, and it wasn't just homes, it was businesses. We can't tax our businesses out of existence. The small tweak I might think of, well, Disneyland has been an example. It hasn't had its taxes raised since '78. Another one is there are some tricks about purchasing property. The owner of Microsoft, I understand, purchased a large hotel property, so the tax would have changed to current tax. So what he did, and I may be wrong, but this is what I understand, is he purchased 49% of it. Some of it was purchased by his wife and some by another partner, which left the property not having changed over, and so the tax rate didn't go up. Tiny tweaks, if I saw it, if I saw the actual bill, I might be amenable to it, but nothing large. That was put in place for good reason. Thank you.
Please.
From what I understand, Prop 13 and the people who would like to shift and change it are very concerned about paying for public services like schools. Yes, our schools need attention, but we're also passing bond measures for our schools when we need them. I do not support changes in Prop 13 without a lot of study and looking at what's behind it. The last thing I would want to see is people priced out of their homes because their taxes are the tax burden is too great for them. Many people in Marin prefer to stay and age in place, and I'd like to see them stay in our community.
Thank you. Matt?
I do not support modifications to Prop 13 at this point in time. You know, when I get my property tax bill, it can't fit on one page. There are line item after line item for special assessments that are made on the property for all sorts of things, all of them worthy. You know, fire flow and mosquito abatement and school bonds of 4 or 5 different flavors, sanitary bonds and all sorts of things. And I think that the reality that we live in now has adjusted to the reality of Proposition 13. So if we were to modify Proposition 13, I think it would just be a wholesale modification of all property tax assessments, and I'm just not sure that that's going to be worth it. I think at the end of the day, there's only so much that the taxpayer can pay, and we're fortunate enough to live in an affluent area that seems to, be able to afford everything. And so it's just too cumbersome to change. Fundamentally, I think that every economic enterprise, whether it be a family, a company, or a government, especially a small town, makes best decisions when they operate from a place of scarcity. If you had everything that you wanted, we would make some really interesting choices.
Thank you. The next question, and Doug will be the first person to answer, how would you rate the vitality of San Anselmo's downtown business community? What can the town do to support it?
Well, not good enough, and we can support it. We can't run people's businesses for them. We have to make some changes, and we are making some changes. One of the things we've done recently is we have a new planning director, and we're putting together a pre-registration or pre-licensing meeting. We want to bring people in from fire and from health, if it's a food service establishment, from the town and from the county, so that the business owner knows what is expected down the road. We have been criticized, and I think rightly so, for not helping businesses open up as quickly as they could and as quickly as we should. And there have been some instances of that are particularly offensive, or not offensive, I suppose that's not the right word, just not in the best interest of the citizens or the business owner. And we're addressing that. We have a new system of permit tracking called Track It, and that's helpful. We're changing the parking application, and we just did. Central Marin Police Department brought it to the stores, where you can have all of your employees on one sheet of paper. It's $25 a year to park for 4 hours longer in the 4-hour lots. We have an economic development committee that's working on these projects and on others. It's really made a big change, and I'm proud to serve on it.
Thank you. Lise?
I love our downtown area, and I love it when it's thriving. 9 years after the flood, it started to look pretty good again. We've got some really nice quality boutiques coming in, beautiful, bustling business environment. But it may not stay that way long. San Anselmo draws very little of its tax income from business activity, from sales taxes. It could do more and it could do better if it solves flooding for its downtown businesses and residents. So I would like to see us solve flooding, put in our detention basins, and our businesses can relocate here securely and confidently so that they can prosper. When they prosper, we will enjoy the fruits of those rewards in the form of increased sales tax revenues for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
San Anselmo is a very sweet little town, and you know, my profession when I'm not running as a candidate is a commercial real estate broker. So I deal with small businesses all the time, and a client and I had the wonderful experience actually of going through the pre-planning meeting with all the department heads, Public Works, Fire, and Planning and Building, and in an application on a building down by Ross on the end of Bolinas. And I tell you, that was perhaps the best $1,000 that client ever spent. By going through that process, we learned many of the pitfalls that were ahead of him, and he probably saved himself a couple $1 million in headaches by walking away from that project. It is just incredibly challenging, if not outright daunting, to start a business and then to meet with a government that is resistant to it is very challenging. So having the proactivity that San Anselmo has with its pre-planning application process is truly a godsend. The only other thing that the town could do is act like an ambassador to the applicant when someone is going through the process, and be his champion, because he's got a whole lot of other considerations other than permitting. And so if permitting is not an issue, then we will continue to have a thriving and vital downtown.
Thank you. Ford?
Before I answer the question directly, I want to address some language that Lise Stamfleet-Torme uses about solving flooding. Flooding is never going to be solved. It's never going to be cured. The reality is that downtown San Anselmo is built right smack dab in the middle of a floodplain. And Memorial Park, if it were to be constructed, would at the most reduce the water flow by 12%. That translates to about 4 inches worth of water height. And as we are dealing with climate change and the kinds of torrential rains that we saw just last year, flooding is not going to be solved. Flooding can be mitigated. Flooding can be reduced. But solving flooding is a misnomer and I think a mistaken way to talk about it. In downtown San Anselmo now, we are starting to have really nice shops come in that, when they band together, can provide destination shopping like there is in Berkeley on 4th Street. And that's really the goal for San Anselmo, rather than a lot of personal services.
Thank you. The next question we'll start with Lise. San Anselmo has successfully consolidated some governmental services with adjacent jurisdictions. Do you see additional possibilities?
Yes, probably well, we spent some time today up with the firefighters up in Novato on special ops and living the life of a firefighter for 4.5 hours or so. I think that's probably one service that we could look at to consolidate. I think in doing so, we might be able to address the staffing needs of our firefighters who go out on call and who are currently going to a vehicle where they probably need a crew of 3 or 4. And after walking in their shoes or boots today, I can tell you those numbers are pretty frightening and could have severe impacts in terms of the quality of their response and end up affecting people's lives. So I think that's one service we could probably look at. I think as a county, as a region, as a community, we should also start to look at our water resources and think about how we can plan for one kind of water that addresses stormwater, sanitary, and freshwater supply as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Consolidation is a great idea. I think that consolidation of the fire departments, as Doug has talked about, is brilliant. It worked fabulously well when we merged our police department with the Twin Cities into the Central Marin Police Authority. I never did get used to that name, but anyway, fire is the next thing in line. Lise has pointed out, as has Doug, that our fire engine companies are understaffed, and it is really clear that is an area where we need to provide as much resources as is reasonable so that these guys can go out and gals can go out on calls and be safe. Beyond police, which we've done, and fire, which we're considering, I think the next area of consolidation is our sanitary districts, and that's throughout the county. It has always amused me how provincial we get with where our sewerage goes, and perhaps I'm naive, but I just don't understand why that is so terribly important, that we have our own individual, many communities in Marin have their own individual sanitation facilities. That is the next area for consolidation.
Thank you. Ford?
San Anselmo's done really well in the consolidation department. As people have mentioned, the first really big consolidation that we did now, I think it was probably 5 years ago when we merged our police department with Twin Cities to make Central Marin Police Agency. That's saving San Anselmo about $700,000 a year now. So thus far, it has saved our town millions of dollars. When police consolidation first was presented to the town council, people were very reluctant to go forward because there is this provinciality. It's like, oh my God, we're not going to have our police force. I recognized the value in consolidating our departments, and so I stuck my neck out and led to make that happen. Subsequently, with respect to fire, we've consolidated now with the Ross Fire Department, and perhaps there can be further. I would agree with Matt. To have a bunch of different sewage agencies seems kind of dumb, and so if we could consolidate there and save money, that would be a good idea too.
Thank you. Doug?
Well, I've already spoken on this issue. I do support consolidation where it can work, and even recently, the police consolidation is actually only a couple of years old. But just recently, I don't serve on the Central Marin Police Board, but I am backup. So I was fortunate enough to be able to vote twice to further consolidate. We consolidated our dispatch services with the Marin County Sheriff Department. So I do believe in consolidation where it works. I want to talk a little bit about the issue Ford brought up, which was mitigating floods. And Ford's right, you can't solve floods. 12% is a lot. I want to remind people that it's 12% at Memorial Park, and we have White Hill School, Phoenix Lake, and another one. There were 2 studies done by professional firms, both of which found Phoenix Lake and Memorial were the #1 and the #2 most important. White Hill came in as well, and we may be changing the ones at the lower end, but that's a significant amount of water flow you're holding back, and it makes a huge, enormous difference. But here's the most important thing I want people to understand. On January 1st, 2005, when we were flooded, San Anselmo was on CNN. It wasn't Fairfax, it wasn't Ross, it was San Anselmo. And if we're not going to do the Memorial Park detention facility because we want Fairfax to solve it, or we want Ross to solve it, or we want Kentfield to solve it, we're abdicating our responsibility. We shouldn't do that.
Thank you. The last question, we'll start with Matt. Does the Fairfax Theater's application to serve alcohol bother you, and why?
Does the Fairfax Theaters, no, that's none of our business. That is the business of the town of Fairfax and the people of Fairfax if they have an issue with it. I do not even want to begin to get in that fight. But what I would like to talk about are the next 3 detention basins that I had talked about earlier. Memorial Park, based upon information from the Marin Watershed's website dated last week, Memorial Park will cost $17.633 million. It will hold back 79 acre-feet of water. Doug, how many gallons?
26,068,114.55.
The 3 other sites that Doug had mentioned up in the headwaters cost 17.3, and they will hold back 204 acre-feet of water. It is not the flood plan that I'm opposed to. It is making sure that the flood money is spent appropriately, where it will do the most benefit for the most people. I truly believe that this project, this aspect of the project, has jumped ahead of the others because there is a grant. And you heard me talk earlier about effective proactive government. This grant is, the virtue of the grant is depriving valuable resources for the rest of the plan, and that's what I object to.
Ford.
You're at risk for having this panel go off the reservation. First off, as to Fairfax, my position has been clear. It's none of our business. It's my opinion that San Anselmo's sticking its nose in the Fairfax Theater's alcohol license application constitutes officious intermeddling, and it's inappropriate for us to do it. It sets a bad precedent. We don't want Fairfax coming into San Anselmo telling us how to run our town, and we ought to practice what we preach and not do it to Fairfax. Now, to go off the reservation. Everybody talks about this $8.7 million grant. That's great, but the grant's got a really big condition, and that condition is that a facility has to be built. And if there's no building of a facility, then all of the money has to be returned to the Department of Water Resources. And we don't know that in town council meetings, it's been stated again and again, we don't know whether we want to or can, or whether it's smart to build a project at Memorial Park. It has not been engineered. It's a theory. And so if we go through the environmental process and we come out without a project, we're going to be in the hole. Our general fund's going to have to pay $1.5 million, and that's a bad idea.
Thank you, Doug.
Well, the reason we did make a protest with ABC relates to the fact that our kids go to that theater. My kid goes to that theater, and my kid goes to that theater alone. as do other children their age. What we're trying to do, we don't at all think that there won't be a liquor license permitted. We're just trying to see if we can get some small changes made, and that's really our point. So I'm not going to stay on that. We did what we did. We feel it was the right thing to do. I've made very clear that ABC does not do a good job across the state. They rarely find people who deserve to be fined. They hardly ever deny a license. And as a member of the California League of Cities Public Policy Safety Commission, we as a commission got together and urged our lawmakers to not let ABC anywhere near the tsunami that's going to happen in 2016 when we have a legalized marijuana bill. We're going to ask that there be a state agency and local agency licensing it. Back to the issue about the flooding, I want to be very clear. The money is there for this project. It is a good project. It's not going to ruin the park. It will save a lot of water. It is, I think, the right thing to do. As a coach and as a Park and Rec Commissioner, I'm not ruining that park.
Thank you. Lise?
Regarding the Fairfax Theater and the alcohol license, I am a very strong believer in local control. If Fairfax wants to be the booziest town in the Ross Valley, then it has that right to make that decision. That said, I think we do have a alcohol problem in the Ross Valley, especially among our teens. Binge drinking takes lives or ruins them or greatly inconveniences them. So I think that the council has got a very tough decision to make over there in Fairfax, and I don't envy them. I'm glad that I won't be making it for them. I have a very simple solution for this issue or this scenario that Ford paints about the Memorial Park detention basin. Voters can choose to vote no on both D and E. And if they do that, then it doesn't come up to a vote of the people of San Anselmo after the CEQA process. The project could just go forward, or there won't be a project. But this might be the best result if both measures failed, because then we could see maybe not a solution, a total solution to flood control, but at least a good, strong, partial one.
Thank you. Before we go to the candidate's closing statement, I'd like to provide some useful information about the coming election. The election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. The last day to register to vote is October 19th. Or to change your registration or re-register if you've changed your name or address since the last time you voted. Your sample ballot will include a request form for a vote by mail ballot. Requests must be received by the county by October 27th. You can watch our debates on the website of the League of Women Voters, marinlwv.org, or the Marin Media Center of Marin, cmcm.tv. The candidates are provided a free web page on our election site, which is smartvoter.org. The polls will open in room 121 in the Civic Center on October 5th, which is 29 days before the election. They will be open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now for the candidates' closing statements. They will be 1.5 minutes each, and we'll start with Lise.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us here today. San Anselmo is a community that is faced with some serious problems. One great big problem that we've all talked about today, which is flooding. But San Anselmo also has a lot of promise. And I think its promise rests strongly in the people of this town, who have proven that they can come together time after time to solve community problems. They came together and passed the flood drainage fee to raise money to find solutions to flooding. They came together in the 90s and passed Measure G so that we could improve our streets and roads. They came together recently in the last 2 years to create a master plan for the Isabella Cook Center and address some of our town's urgent recreational needs. I promise that if I'm elected to the San Anselmo Town Council, that I will serve to the very best of my abilities, that I will be responsive, I will listen to voters, I will engage with them. I will use the same grassroots activism techniques that I've nurtured over the past 25 years of living here in San Anselmo. So I humbly ask for your vote and your support this November 3rd. Thank you very much. And I'm endorsed by 4 of our sitting town council people and the Marin Democratic Party.
Thank you. Doug, you're next.
Well, first off, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this debate, and again, my colleagues and friends here for joining me in this. I want to tell you that I do support moving forward on Memorial Park because I believe it's the right thing to do. Science tells me that. I'm listening to people who study this. I've looked at that project, and it makes sense. It's also important to note, as I said, it's the only one in San Anselmo, and we can't ask our neighbors to do all the work around us. You know, today, as we've mentioned, we're at the fire ops, and I spoke to Jared Huffman, and I mentioned to him that at the Marin IJ endorsement meeting, one of the questions they asked all 4 of us was, if we don't move forward on the Memorial Park plan, are we really back at square one? And all 4 candidates answered yes. And when I told that to Congressman Huffman, he looked at me and he said, who in the world wants to knock us back to 2005? One of the complaints we have is we've spent money, and that money is spent on science, and it's part of the process, but we've done nothing. Exactly. We can't do nothing. We need to move forward on scientifically engineered flood mitigation. Not a perfect solution, but a major impact, a major change, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ford, you're next.
Okay. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this today. I have been an elected public official for 8 years. So you've seen my act. You've seen how I am and how I conduct myself. You know me as being a straight shooter, that I mean what I say and I say what I mean. I articulate my position, I articulate my reasons, but I also stay open. I'm not an ideologue or doctrinaire, and I agree with Ralph Waldo Emerson's adage that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. And if there's anything that I don't want to have in life, it's a little mind. So I hope that you tell me that you like more what I've been doing by electing me to a 3rd term. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that. We've talked about flooding a lot. There's lots of rejoinders that I could do. I'm not going to do it. I'll just say that if you elect me, I'll shoot straight with you, and I'll always be responsive.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. It's really great to be here today. And you know what? That's a really good thing to do, is not talk about flooding anymore. I am Matt Brown. I am really what you see is what you get. I am from here. I was born in San Francisco, raised in Marin County. I've lived in the Ross Valley for over 20 years. When I say I love this place, I mean I really, really love this place. This is my home. This is where my wife and I will live for the rest of our lives. San Anselmo is absolutely a wonderful town. It has many, many things going for it. And current leadership, I think, has divided this town with plans and policies that are not perfectly transparent. And if elected to the San Anselmo Town Council, I will make sure that we are transparent, that the people are heard, that the office is open again on Fridays for whatever reason we're still closed, that the consumers of governmental service are our customers and that they will be heard. I look forward to this election. I think it's very exciting that the voters of San Anselmo have such a very clear choice, and I look forward to serving you in the future.
Thank you. That ends this candidate forum. For more information, you may want to go to the League's smartvoter.org website and enter your street address and zip code, where you will be able to see your own ballot with links to the candidates, issues, ballot measures, and information about the voting process itself. We also have important election resource material on our website at marinlwv.org. The League of Women Voters welcomes both men and women members, and we hope you will join us in our important work. Thank you to the candidates and to the timekeeper, Linda Deere. Thank you for watching.